To introduce our keynote speaker, as well as let you know why we chose him, I want to bring up a great friend, Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox. But first, let me tell you a few things about the Lieutenant Governor you may not know. Lieutenant Governor Cox wanted to be a professional basketball player as a kid until he realized there wasn't a spot for a short, slow player, although I believe he was a starter on the 1992 Fairview First Ward team. So there's always that. He plays bass in a local rock band with his brother. Their band name is The Upside. He's one of the biggest Utah jazz fans alive. He's addicted to sugar cookies and can tell you where to find the best one in the city, and he's one of the best Twitter follows there is. Please welcome to the stage the 8th Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Utah, Spencer Cox.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here with you tonight. Now, I could not be more excited. As Tom mentioned, I'm a huge NBA fan. I did make up, though, I was short, but I made up for it by being exceptionally slow. So it didn't work out well for me, but it did work out well for our next guest. This is a dream come true for me. If you followed Bill Walton at all, you know he is a national treasure. I don't think there's any other way to describe him. But he did tell me something. He said, do not waste time on introductions, whatever you do. So I'm going to cut to the chase. Many of us were watching the BYU-Utah basketball game several months ago. I was sitting in my living room listening to Bill Walton do Bill Walton things, and then he started to riff on Utah and how amazing Utah was. And you could tell he wasn't making this up. He knew it firsthand. He had experienced Utah. I immediately tweeted out, I tweeted at our tourism department and the Governor's Office of Economic Development to ask them if they were paying Bill under the table. They assured me that they were not, that he really cared that much about Utah. And so we're very excited to hear Bill Walton here. I think we do have a video clip, though, of a couple minutes of that great call at the BYU-Utah game. So let's go ahead and roll that clip before we bring him up to the stage.
Utah, life elevated, bears ears, grand staircases to heaven, mountains, rivers, valleys, lakes, you name it. We got rivalries, we've got history, and we got basketball. Some people ask why. I ask why not. Oh, Zion National Park, the Virgin River, the tunnel that rides right through there. You go in your bike from the east, the Cougars are jumping from mesa to mesa. The Red Rock of Utah, spectacular state. From Provo in the south up to Ogden in the north. The freeways, the roads, the construction, the companies, the people. The youngest state in our country. What a grand celebration of life. Like climbing the grand staircase. As great as things are going here, the #1 public health concern is air quality here. And you can see it when you fly in. I mean, this is the way Los Angeles used to look until they made the rules and had to change everything.
Now, it turns out that Tom was watching the same game and immediately said, we need to see if we can get Bill Walton here. He graciously agreed. Ladies and gentlemen, the most loquacious, greatest basketball player ever. Please welcome to the stage the great Bill Walton. Wow. It doesn't get any better than this, Bill.
Utah, life elevated. Come on, here we go.
All right,
solar energy.
We're going to interrupt each other all night long. This is happening, people.
Spend some time taking your tie off. Come on, man. Solar energy, the biggest no-brainer in the history of the world. More solar energy hits the Earth every day than is needed to power the entire world's requirements for a year. More solar energy hits the state of Texas every 30 days than has ever been extracted from the ground to generate energy. It's the biggest no-brainer ever. And so when we think about how 25 years ago today, in the great state of Utah, the NBA All-Star Game was played here.
This is true.
what was then called the Delta Center.
There were
right?
2 MVPs?
2 MVPs, joint MVPs, first time ever, representing the team spirit that we have here today. Even though our great Governor Gary has just threatened to sue the state of California over power generation.
Governor, would you like to defend yourself? I got your back. I got your back.
We love you, Governor Gary, and we love you standing tall for your state. We also know that as we come together and we sit here in the Spence and what's Spence's
Cleone.
Cleone.
Eccles.
All right, I talked to Lisa beforehand. Spence
Okay.
couldn't make it tonight. But when I think of Utah and when I think of the incredible people that have helped build this state, and you're all here tonight, but the ones I know best are the Huntsman family, and it's sad to hear that John just passed away. I was doing a television interview back there, and I didn't know he had died yet, right? And so,
It was
never
awkward.
never so embarrassed in my life. But think of what Spence and the Huntsman family have done, right? They have built these magnificent empires, but now they spend all their time giving it away. And where do they give it away to? They give it away to schools. They give it away to hospitals. They give it away to children. And let's just think about what that means. Schools right here. The 5 great universities in this incredible state, the beehive state, the industriousness, the enthusiasm, the cornerstones of John Wooden's pyramid of success. But education is what's going to solve our problems. And the drive and the push forward to develop the mental acuity in conjunction with the emotional commitment that makes you the champion. And then the hospitals, the health care. Health is everything. I know. I have faced death. I have seen it. I know that everything springs from your health. Without health, without the clean air to breathe, we have nothing. I care, you care, we all care for UCAIR. I mean, I want to see that as a new cheer in all the public schools here.
Okay, Bill,
And then
now,
one last thing
listen,
here. I'm just getting
one last thing.
Please,
I don't believe
you
one last
haven't taken
thing.
your tie off
Okay.
yet. Please, man, come on.
Look, they won't let me. It's mic'd up.
No, man, well, put it on your shirt. It's okay. So,
One last thing.
Oh, man.
Can you imagine calling a game with this guy? You don't get a word
now
in
you know
anyways.
what it's like for Coach
I do.
Wooden,
I
right?
do. Okay, one last thing.
The children, right? Please don't take away our children's day. And what's the first lesson we learn as children? And that is to clean up our mess. And that's what we have to do. Because we have ruined our planet. We have made decisions. We have gone down a certain path. Years ago, we didn't know. But now we do know. And what are we going to tell our children? What are we going to tell them when they come to us with Neil Young's song, How Can You Run When We Know? So our challenge, and the biggest challenge that we'll ever face is what happens when things go absolutely wrong? They're going wrong now. That, when we are able to take the worst and turn it into the best, then you know we have it. And that's what Utah is trying to do. But as I implore you, as Coach Wooden implored me all the time, try harder, do better, so that we do have that chance to survive. In sports, in life, in business, in family, in everything, it all rolls into one, that ability to sustain, to keep it going. And that's what every company you see up and down the Wasatch Front, the Silicon Slopes here, all these fantastic companies. You see what Vivint is doing with their smart homes, with their solar. You see what Chevron is doing, the reduced emissions and everything. That's all great, but just think of what it was like playing for Coach Wooden, right? We tried with everything we had, everything, to get him to acknowledge that we were doing something. We started at UCLA 48 years ago. The records still stand to this very day. And he never said a word of positive support or encouragement to any of us, right? The best we ever got was a little twinkle in his eye, right? Or maybe his lip curled up a little bit. But as soon as we finished one thing, it was, okay, that's good. Just do it again now faster. Let's do it again now faster. So all the award winners, all the sponsors, everything. We got Alan from UCLA. We got Carlos from who's running the transportation. Everybody's doing all the energy and bringing it all in. Please, more. That's all I ever wanted in life was more. And so as we keep going down the path of what we're trying to do here with Utah, life elevated, yes. What more could you ask for? And
That was one last thing. Are we still?
This is a continuation of that.
Well, I know that. I know that.
I got an offensive rebound and I'm back in the game of life, right?
Well,
so
I'm boxing out next time.
Well, I've got to look, man. I'm a dirty player.
It's true.
I'm a dirty player. So,
Speaking of which, we're going to talk about Danny Ainge later.
Oh, I love Danny
Okay,
Ainge.
I
That
know.
guy belongs in the Hall of Fame.
That's right.
But think of this for a moment here. In our lives, we always run into people who say to us, that'll never work. That's not true, because every time we're faced with that obstacle, people come up with new ideas, new innovations, new paths forward. Our goal, and we got everybody here tonight. We got the governor, we got you. I mean, it's unbelievable. Are you a lieutenant, or are you a corporal, or are you going to be a private when this is over tonight?
I'm the lieutenant
tonight. Okay, you're a lieutenant tonight. Okay.
We're working on it.
So, when you're going forward, that obstacle is going to be there, right? And the obstacle right now is, how do we clean up the air? Think of your surgeon. Think of my surgeons. Think of my foot surgeons, who, yes, they were trying to fix what was the problem today, but they were always trying to get to the core of that problem. And people would tell them when they're working at me, they'd say, that'll never work, but it did work. I'm alive today. And then the other thing, I strongly recommend you read Kareem's second to the newest book, right? I don't know. He came out with 2 brand new books about himself within 4 months of each other, right? I mean, anyway, he talks in the first book, Coach Wooden and Me. He talks about race relations. He talks about politics. He talks about religion, all the things that nobody wants to talk about. But he just goes right in there, and he has a great section in there, in due time. And people who are held back, people who are forced to take a back seat, people who have been the subject of discrimination, of hatred, of all the negative things in your life. And I try it with everything I have in my life to associate with the positive and with the brilliant radiance of what we have here in Utah. And so that sense of in due time, just wait, we'll get there. Don't buy into that. Buy into the fact that we're going for it and we're going to go with everything we have. Because what Tom, is it Tom or is it Thom? I don't know.
You got it. It's Tom.
Look, I am a phonetic learner, right? And so I get these guys, I broadcast these guys who have 6 names, right? I mean, come on, give me something short. I'm a lifelong stutterer. My life was defined by meteoric climbs to the top, just like the entire state of Utah. Brigham Young came down Immigration Canyon, right? He said, this is the place. I'm Bill.
Hey, Bill, Tom.
Yeah, Tom.
But I'm taking Spencer's time.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
It's on.
So Brigham Young comes down and he says, this is the place, right? And nobody ever looked back. Nobody ever stopped. And so this remarkable chance to drive things forward where we are today. Because in the world today, with what we have and all these companies and universities, the 5 great ones here in this great state of Utah, the businessmen, the visionaries, the guys who are willing to step up in this room here tonight to make it understand that it's not, Tom was talking about incremental change. Incremental change is critical, yes, but you have to have that big vision, and don't ever let anybody stop you and tell you no. Don't let anybody tell you no who doesn't have the power to say yes. Think back in our own lives, growing up in the 50s and the 60s with desegregation, Brown versus Board of Education, the Civil Rights sit-ins, Vietnam, the Voting Rights Act, ultimately the Clean Air Act, Watergate, all these things that brought people together to make things better. If we didn't come together the way the children right now, after the terrible shooting in Florida this past week, if those children don't come together, if we don't come together, we are missing this golden opportunity. Don't wait. It's like sitting in a basketball game and waiting for the ball to just fall in your lap. That's not the way you go. You come out here, Governor Gary, he didn't sit there and wait. No, Lowry, he didn't sit there and wait. You didn't sit there and wait. Well, you got that band. You fire it up, man. You're like John Fogerty, right?
I will tell you, I know what it feels like to sit there and wait.
Okay.
What was your name again?
By the way, he's
I'm
Bill
Bill.
with 2 L's.
Yes.
Okay, now Bill,
Okay.
look, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with these.
Okay.
All right, I have a whole bunch of questions. So
tell you.
now John Wooden, right? You told me on the phone. You said you were going to be John Wooden. You're going to
John
be Red
Wooden.
Auerbach. I'm going to be Red Auerbach.
And I'm little
going to
Billy from
interrupt
San
you.
Diego.
This is Billy
with
from
his
San
red
Diego.
hair and his freckles and his big nose and his
shows up-
goofy, nerdy
do you-
looking face.
Do you
and his
remember what
horrendous
John Wooden
speech
did
impediment.
every practice? He
Yes.
had
He had his flashcards.
and
The clock.
That's
and
right.
Everything was run by the clock.
Okay,
What I love
everything.
about that
Right
clock,
here.
I've been up here for a while, that clock has not moved.
I know.
This is the coolest thing. This is the coolest thing
I
ever.
think it's broken.
So I told you how
it's
my
broken.
life...
It stopped at 8:15.
It's still
now
8:15. No, hold on, man. So like Coach Wooden, you know, in my life, meteor climbs to the top, catastrophic failure. Basketball and athletics were the easiest parts of my life, by far.
These were
Piece
the
of
questions
cake.
I was going to ask.
For me, the challenges were my orthopedic health. I've had 37 orthopedic operations on my body. I was born with bad feet. Structural congenital defects, club feet, if you will. I ground them into dust. Of the 37 orthopedic operations, 25 have been on my feet and ankles. And from the knee down, it's all fused. I can't feel a thing. If I fall off the stage tonight, please, Thom, come up here and just pop me back up. Slap me in the face and let's get going again. When I was 14, I'm down at the gym, and I am playing against some really old guys. They're in their 30s, right? And I am torching them. I'm having just a huge game, and they don't like it, so they take me down, and they tear up my knee. 1-2, high-low, bam, I'm on the ground, and my leg is broken and bent, and they have to operate on it, and things were never the same again. Then when I was 21, I'm playing for UCLA, and I'm high in the air above the ball, above the basket. Hadn't lost a game in 5 years, and making the play on the ball up there. January 7th, 1974, not that I remember. In Pullman, not that I remember. The guy from the other team in a despicable act of violence and dirty play. He comes from the other side of the court, bam, takes my legs out from underneath me, flips me over, and I catapult over, and I land flat on my back on the innovation of the day, a tartan floor, and I break 2 bones in my spine. And I spent the next 11 days in the hospital. I got up, put a corset on, steel rods in it, flew across this great country, and we lost our 88-game winning streak. And we broke Coach Wooden's most oft-repeated admonition to us, which was, do your best. Your best is good enough. That's all I ask. Whatever it is you do, don't beat yourself. Don't cheat yourself. Don't shortchange yourself, because that's the worst kind of defeat you'll ever suffer. We thought he was crazy. We were teenagers, right? What did we know? We thought this was some walking antique, right? We didn't know what we had until we left UCLA. And so here was this guy who just was constantly teaching and everything, but when I had my injuries, when I had all my problems, that's when I really started learning about life and the ability to turn failure into success and the ability to learn how to speak. I'm a lifelong stutterer. I could not say a word. I could not say hello. I could not say thank you until I was 28. Learning how to speak is my greatest accomplishment and your worst nightmare. And so today...
And by yours, he means mine.
What's your name again? So today I'm on Bill Walton 17.0. So when I hear all these people tell, and when you look like this, you get nothing but no, you can't do that your entire life, right? And so, but today, things have never been better. I'm all better from my spine surgery. My spine surgery was February 8th, 2009, 9 years and 2 weeks ago. And so, not that I remember. And so, but I'm all better, and I take no medication. I have zero pain. I just go full speed ahead. I've never been busier. I've never been happier.
Bill,
I've
at
never been
one
this
time
healthy
you
since I
said
was
you
13.
thought you would never be pain-free.
Right.
And
I spent my entire adult life. I spent half my adult life in the hospital.
You talked about laying on the floor saying, I may never get up again.
Right. My spine failed. So I lived in this world built for preschool children, right? And here I am. I'm flying around on 200 nights a year, 200 nights a year on the road. That means 280, 290 days a year on the road. 600,000 air miles, domestic air miles every single year. Just constantly on the go, full speed. And then because of the bad foundation, think of the path forward in life. When you want to get to where you want to go, when we want to get to where we need to go, you got to have a plan. It can't just be hope. It can't just be luck, although never discount the power of luck, man. I stole John Wooden's lucky penny. Man, I've been living under that curse for 44 years, right? So anyway, so the plan for the path forward. Have a dream, have a vision, what it is you want. Find a teacher. Find a leader. The best way to find out how to get to where you want to go is to talk to somebody who's on their way back. Then join a team. Nobody makes it to the top alone. Immerse yourself in that incredibly positive culture that the leaders have created, Life Elevated Utah, and then build your foundation, because the strength of the team is the strength of the individual. And my foundation was always built around John Wooden. I had the greatest parents ever who had zero interest in sports. I never shot a basket with my dad, right? Never.
Your mom was a librarian.
My mom was a librarian. I had the greatest parents ever. And then I was blessed that my very first coach was absolutely just a saint of a human being. He was a volunteer at our elementary school for 59 years. Never took a penny. When he died a couple years ago,
Worked for the fire department.
After 59 years, he was the fireman, right? 59 years. When he died, I can't tell you, he was the richest guy I've ever known, even though he was a volunteer his whole life. But I can't tell you today that he knew anything about sports, but he knew life. And that's what was important to us. He made it fun. We couldn't wait to get there. And then I had, as you folks had Hot Rod Hundley as your broadcaster, the voice in all your ears growing up, right? And how excited, how fun Hot Rod made it all the time. Hot Rod, he learned that from Chick Hearn, because Chick Hearn was the Laker broadcaster and Hot Rod was Chick's partner at the very beginning, and Hot Rod played for the Lakers. And anybody who's ever been touched by Chick Hearn has just been absolutely never the same person again. And then I had John Wooden, who I was his easiest recruit. I became his worst nightmare, and I drove the poor guy to an early grave at 99. And what I love about this clock, it never moves.
It never moves.
This is the
It
coolest
really
thing
doesn't.
ever.
This is like the fifth circle of hell.
No, man. This is heaven for me, man.
It's heaven for me, too.
Before we, look, I'm going to be the last guy to leave this room tonight, okay?
You will.
He is going to drag me off this stage. He's going to throw me off this stage. He's going to be like the guys in the Grateful Dead who say, Bill, you got to go home
Wait,
now,
did
right?
you already quote Neil Young?
Absolutely.
Did he
Yes,
quote Neil
I
Young
did
earlier?
quote, yes.
He did. See, and I put money on Jerry Garcia first. I lost.
Well, they're all the same person. Don't change that clock, please, man. I was having... So let's talk leadership here. So I have been so blessed in my life to have been impacted by these phenomenal leaders and what I've been able to learn from them. And let's just talk real quick about the elements of leadership that we're all responsible for. First one, illuminate the path forward. Show everybody where we're going to go and how we're going to get there. Then pull the team together. Then define the terms of the conflict. This is who we are, and this is how this game is going to be played. And then do what others can't and won't do. And then lead the relentless offensive attack. Hit first. And I saw Sean, the Attorney General, who went to UCLA, I believe. Is that true, Sean? Where's Sean over here?
I think Sean had to leave
Sean,
early.
Quitter. Anyway. Front runner. Anyway. And then understand, accept, and embrace that risk, failure, doubt, hesitation, uncertainty, loss, complete disaster is all part of it. That happens every single moment, every encounter in our life. And if you're just thinking about hanging on, it's not gonna work. Life is about the future. We learn from yesterday, we dream about the future, but it's what we do today. And that sense of having it all come together, and then ultimately, the obligation of the leader to say no when no is appropriate. Because when the leader can say no and the team still buys in, then you know you got something. When you look like this, you get no your entire life, right? And so here it was. I become a leader for the first time in my life when our children start being born. We have 4 children. 8 grandchildren, 8 3/4 grandchildren. I wish I was like John Huntsman, God rest his soul, 56 grandchildren. Oh my God, I'm so jealous. But we have more grandchildren coming with every phone call. We're still very lucky. And so, but our children, when they became of age, when they were growing up, they're 8, 10, 12, whatever. Today, they're 42, 40, 38, and 36. And I couldn't be prouder, I couldn't be happier. I'm the luckiest dad in the world. But back then, in those days, I was the leader. I had to say no. And they would look at me and they'd say, Dad, we hate you, Dad. You're the worst dad in the history of the world, Dad. All you ever do, Dad, is say no. We hate you so much, Dad, because you're the worst dad ever. You only say no, Dad. We hate you so much, we're going to go to Notre Dame, Dad. I would look at him and say, hey, look, I'd love to say yes. Everybody wants to say yes. Everybody wants to live in the culture of yes, but the culture of yes is built on the foundation of no. And so if you want me to say yes, you got to start asking me the right questions. Like, hey, Dad, can I go to bed now? Dad, can I turn off the TV? Yes. Dad, can I improve my diet? Can I open a new book, Dad? Dad, can I go to work for Vivint in solar energy? Dad, can I do the dishes? Dad, can I go down to help Chevron down there? Can I come and work with Alan and Scott in transportation and environmental qualities? Can I come and help in Utah and work and save the public lands? Yes, 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 I'll do all that, yes, yes, all the time. But it's the questions that we ask, and it's the willingness to have that open mind to come together.
Can I say no and ask a question?
You can do whatever you want.
We're going to ask a question here.
Just put the clock back to 8:15. That's all.
I have a question about team building, okay?
Right.
You've talked about team building. This is a private-public partnership. We're trying to build
Which is what it's all about.
That's right.
Because policy is everything.
Policy is everything.
Policy is everything.
You talk about team building. Red Auerbach, best team builder
I was part
ever.
of 3 of the greatest teams ever, and that doesn't count my high school or elementary school
Now, in
teams.
Utah, in the 80s, you had to choose. We were all Jazz fans, but you also had to choose whether you were a Lakers fan or a Celtics fan.
Why do you have to choose? Look, I don't live in this binary decision-making
I know you
world,
don't.
Right? Where
You
it's
never
yes
have.
or no.
Like,
for me, it's
should I answer a question? Should I not answer a question?
No, for me, it's yes, hopefully, maybe, right?
Some of us chose the 86 Celtics.
You guys grew up in this world that everything was ESPN with best, worst.
This was before ESPN.
No, man, 80s, ESPN started in 79.
We only had 3 channels in my house.
I was there, okay. We didn't have a TV. Best thing that ever happened
But talk about team building. Casey
it's all about the team.
Casey Jones wasn't a great basketball player.
Yes, he was. He's in the Hall of Fame.
I know he's in the Hall of Fame, but people said he wasn't. Now you tell me why he was and how you build this team.
What are the 3 elements of the team? Thank you. Thank you. Please recycle those. So John Wooden had this pyramid of success, right? John Wooden was the first great basketball player. John Wooden got hurt. John Wooden had to stop. Even the great Karl Malone and John Stockton, everybody has to stop. Nobody believes it's going to be them, but we all have to stop, and we all have to change, we all have to transition. And that's why all the nomenclature and the lexicon from basketball is just so appropriate for everything in life. Basketball, first of all, is the most perfect game in the world. I hate waste and I hate waiting, right? Basketball, the only thing you have to wait for is to put the ball in the air and then who's got game, who can play, who's in shape, and who really wants this, right? Football, basically a halfway house between the army and prison. And then baseball, a bunch of out-of-shape guys scratching themselves, taking steroids, standing around, waiting for the game of life to come to them, right? But no, basketball. And so the team. John Wooden had this pyramid of success. This was part of his foundation. Let me run through that real quick.
By the way, this is going exactly how I thought it was going to go. This is how we scripted it.
I've never had more fun.
Look, he has a nickname. His nickname is Solar.
Solar.
What's my nickname?
Well.
I thought it was Cole, but
Cole.
Look,
no,
I want to hear the pyramid.
I don't want to badmouth the sponsors, right?
No.
Look, this is the team. We are all in this together, okay? If we don't see it, that's where our country has fallen apart. There's no shared responsibility. There's no sense that, okay, this is my neighbor, my happiness is based on them. That's what John Wooden taught us.
And it's not binary.
It's not binary, no. And that, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be successful because how good you are, And that sense of, this is all about me. And I don't understand where the concept of public service has gone into the personal self-enrichment, which is what I see out there right now and what's going on over there. Because believe me, if the Pilgrims had landed over here, you know, you get to Colorado and it would basically stop. And there's everything over there. But the team, right? That's John Wooden. Okay.
Pyramid.
Pyramid.
Team
Pyramid.
building.
15 words that he thought were important. Values, personal attributes, industriousness, enthusiasm, friendship, loyalty, cooperation, intentness, initiative, alertness, self-control.
He can do this all night.
Physical fitness, skill development, commitment to the team, poise, confidence, competitive greatness, flanked by the 2 external words, faith and patience. Then quickly into his 7-point creed, which his dad, Joshua, gave to him. Make each day your masterpiece. Drink deeply from all sources of knowledge. Make friendship a fine art. Prepare for the tough times sure to come. And then 3 more that I can't remember, but I have 0 memory. And then the 2 sets of 3 that he encouraged us to live by. He never told us what we had to do. He made it a choice for us. He lived by everything he talked about. He was better than perfect in everything that he did. I let him down. His 2 sets of 3s. Don't lie. Don't cheat. Don't steal. Don't whine, don't complain, don't make excuses. And then the endless maxims, which we thought were the dumbest things. We thought the whole thing was ridiculous, right? We called him the walking antique. But he'd be out there barking around the whole time, you know. Be quick, but don't hurry. Whatever the heck that means. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. Happiness begins when selfishness ends. Never mistake activity for achievement. The worst things you could do for the ones you love are the things they could and should do for themselves. When everybody thinks alike, nobody thinks. It's okay to disagree, just don't be disagreeable. And then the one that he wrote for me on the day I graduated, June 1974, 44 years ago. To Bill Walton, it's the things you learn after you know it all that count. John Wooden. And then his go-to mantra, which is perfect for Utah, this incredible state of 3.2 million, most of it focused right here, so much like the other states in our great Conference of Champions, which 6 states represent the 4th largest economy in the world. Number 4, if you take away the 6 and leave the other 44 by themselves, it would be, in order, the EU with 28 countries. It would be those 44 countries, states, not counting us in the Conference of Champions, then China, and then these 6 states, and that incredible power that we have. But Coach Wooden, he always had this fallback mantra. Basketball is just like life. It's not a game of size and strength. It's a game of skill, timing, and position. It's not how big you are. It's how big you play. It's not how high you jump. It's where you are and when you jump. Now, I'm always scratching my head. That's why I'm bald. And so, because I'm like, this makes no sense, Wooden, because I always wanted to know from him why. Why I had to cut my hair. Why I had to shave. Why I had to wear the clothes he wanted me to wear. Why Nixon was president. Why we were in Vietnam. And why can't the cheerleaders be in my hotel room on the road trips, right? And so, whenever I said that, you know, he would look at me. He would look at me and he would say, you know, Bill, it's all fine and good that you think that way, but I'm the coach here. And while we've enjoyed having you, we're going to miss you. Now, I had a 43-year relationship with this teacher. And, you know, and I've had a lot of great teachers, and he's right there at the top. But 3 years as a high school player, being recruited, 4 years as his player, when he certainly was not your friend. Because the coach, the leader, they're not your friend. Their job is to make you better at what you do and get us to where we want to go, to where they want to take us. And then the 36 years, which were by far the most interesting, when he would open up and talk about himself, because he was the most selfless, humble, caring, loving, giving person ever on earth, right? And so we did 1,000 events together after I learned how to talk, right? And I would drive him crazy. I mean, the 2 biggest problems that I ever caused him was when I got arrested at a peace rally and he had to drive me home from the jailhouse. Oh my God, he was so livid that day. And then one time we're doing a show like this on stage, Staples Center, 25,000 people, right? Everybody there. And I gave out his home number. And oh my God, he was livid. right? He never had a cell phone. So anyway.
I think I got your number, but I don't think I gave you mine.
619-890-9085. Bill.Walton@BillWalton.com. If I don't get back to you in 24 hours, just send it again the next day. Say, second request, I thought you were cool. And so, anyway, so we're at this event. It's a big event. And there's Q&A at the end. We go on for hours and just going wild back and forth. And finally, we go to the Q&A, and this real young person, just like Abby right here in the front row, right, who could not have possibly been there. She was just too young, right? So she's sitting there all day, little notepad, writing it all down. And, you know, Coach Wooden's looking around and all serious. And it's the same with me, right? Just like tonight. And finally, it's her turn to ask the question. She goes, Coach Wooden, and he goes, yes, young lady. Says, were you really going to kick Bill Walton off the team because he wasn't going to cut his hair or shave? And Coach sat up extra straight in his chair, looked at me, looked back at her, looked around the whole room, looked at me again, leans forward and he says, the only thing that matters is that Bill thought I was going to kick him off the team, right? And I did, and there was nothing more important. Just like there's nothing more important in our clean air, which is the foundation of who and what we are.
See how we brought that back
the
together?
inability,
That's
the inability
amazing.
to breathe, the inability to drink clean water, sustainability, keep it all going. And that's why the team. Now, the nicest thing that anybody ever said about me as a basketball player, ever, was that I help my teammates play better. And that's what you folks do. You help Utahns live a better life, right? And nobody, I salute you, I applaud you. I just want more, but I always want, I'm super greedy.
Okay,
I got the transition, right? I got the transition.
all right,
See,
here comes the transition.
transition, rebound, turnaround, crossover, timeout, momentum, all this, all the lexicon.
You promised me a speed round.
I got it.
Okay.
We're a long way from the speed round, man. We're barely through the first quarter, man. I'm barely through my introductory
I
remarks.
know.
And so I'm not going anywhere. So anyway, they said I help my teammates play better, which is what you folks do. Maurice Lucas, the greatest teammate I ever had, he made me the best player I ever was. He was so important in my life that we named our next born son, Luke Walton, after Big Luke, Maurice Lucas. And on the day that little Luke was born, March 28th, 1980, 38 years ago, Big Luke, he came to our house bearing gifts. It was a big picture of himself in full rage, action, and glory, going for it like nobody else ever could. And he inscribed on this picture to little Luke, to make it in this world, you gotta be tough, Big Luke. And that picture hung over little Luke's bed for 18 years before he went down to Tucson to play in the Conference of Champions for Lute Olson, the 21st century version of John Wooden. But what made Maurice Lucas so special? I mean, this guy was so tough and so fierce and so willing to step to the front and take the responsibility. So I live by the mantra, and I live by the clock. That clock is wrong. And everything in my life is based on the schedule and the time. If you can't be on time, be early. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. Always gearing up, getting ready for that ball in the air to determine the fate of the known world one more time. When that red light comes on, when that phone rings, when you got that moment to negotiate with California as to how we're going to solve these problems, as opposed to wasting time and money with litigation and everything. Let's come together and figure it out and say, you and me, our indigenous brothers here, everybody, Utah, I mean, Wyoming up there, taxing wind and subsidizing coal. I don't get this, right? The policies we need, what we value will flourish. Please read the Geography of Genius by Eric Weiner, a brilliant book. Please read Play Bigger by Christopher Lochhead. Please read The Wildness Within by Kenneth Brower, David Brower's son, and all the fights and the battles and getting it all done. So Maurice Lucas, I'm in the locker. right? And I'm just in the zone. I am just so fired up, and all the calculations and decision makings, because you got to figure it out before it happens, because it happens so fast, right? And so all of a sudden, bam, an elbow in my rib cage, and I look up, I'm just bounced out of my zone, and I look over, and it's Maurice Lucas sitting right next to me in my locker. And he says, "Hey, Billy, what do we got to do to win this game tonight?" I said, "Maurice, look at the clock. There's 5 minutes to go before tip-off, and you're asking me, what do we got to do? We've been spending 3 or 4 days on new plays, film, strategy, matchups." He puts his hand over my mouth, says, "Shut up, Billy. Quit spitting and stuttering all over everything." He said, "I don't care about any of that stuff. I don't care about film, strategy, matchups, people. I care about people. Look around this room right now, Billy, and you tell me who you think has to do something special for us to win this game tonight." So I'd look around, and I'd identify a couple little guards, a couple little 6-footers, right, who had to do something more than just inbound the ball, feed the post, and play some token defense on the perimeter, right? Karl Malone said it best. "In this game, men are made in the paint." Karl Malone, the Mayo Man. And how cool was it when he met his wife, Kay? She was in town touring as Miss Idaho, and there was a big parade welcoming Karl Malone into Utah, right? And so all of a sudden, she's on the sideline, and she's looking, what are they honoring this guy for? "Oh, man, they call him the Mayo Man." And so she's like thinking it's really cool that, hey, Utah's got a black Mayo Man. That's really cool. We have a parade for him, right? They're happily married ever since, right?
The rest of the story was it was the 24th of July parade, which is Karl Malone's birthday. He thought the parade was for him.
And so Maurice Lucas, he looks at me as he stands up, and he looks down, surveys the whole room after I've identified the little guard. He looks down at me and he says, "I'll take care of this." And then he walks across the room, statuesque, Raven-esque, an Adonis of the night, huge, powerful, muscular figure. And he comes over and he sits close as can be in the guard's locker, puts his arm on his shoulder.
May not end well.
All warm and fuzzy, you know, Bob Knight, Bob Huggins, Frank Martin down at South Carolina. He says, "Hey, man, I was just talking to Billy over there, and Billy thinks that if you play really well, we're going to win this game tonight." And the guy goes, "No problem, Luke. I'll do my best." And then big Luke, he changes from the warm and fuzzy as he takes that hand from the guy's shoulder and puts it on the back of his neck and jerks the guy up off the ground, pulls him in face to face, looks right into his soul, deep through his eyes, and says, "Your best is not good enough. If you don't play the game of your life tonight, I'm going to kill you on the spot." And he threw the guy down. The guy played as if his life depended on it. And it did. There was no team member like Maurice Lucas. Larry was a better player. Larry was the best player I ever played with. Kareem was the best player I ever played against, and not even close.
And the best player ever, Bill Russell.
He's my favorite player.
That's what I thought.
I've got 7 players at the top of the mountain for me, and in chronological order. Because how many children do you have?
4.
That's not enough. We're in Utah, man.
Yeah.
So please
set the
talk
bar
to
low.
Abby.
Yeah.
So
it's a little late for that.
it is Abby, right?
Yeah, it is
She's
Abby.
your wife or
She
your
is.
daughter?
Yeah, and we just have one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't rank and rate or compare your children, right? No, man, you love
no,
them all.
of course
okay,
not.
so
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
7 guys, and
Okay.
I'm about to. I'd like to add, and I will add LeBron, and I love Steph, and I love Kevin Durant. But they're still playing, so they got to finish it out first. But chronologically, Bill Russell, my favorite player ever. Wilt, Oscar, Kareem, Larry, Magic, and Michael, and that sense of excellence. So I had the privilege, and I know that people in Utah think that Game 7 push by Michael Jordan, that had nothing to do with it, please.
Hey, can you talk about uh-oh for just a second?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
I'm just, so I saw the play happen, right? Houston's the world champion, and they're going for another one. But Utah's the better team. And Utah was on the road and hanging on and hanging on and hanging on. And you got to, when you're going for that, man, you got to put them away. And you got to come. And that was Kareem, and that was Larry, and that was Michael. And Akeem, he had lost it. And Clyde was losing it at the same time. And the Jazz were coming up, man. And so I'm sitting right there with Greg and Snapper Jones. And they inbound the ball, and the Rocket defense just like falls down, right? And I said, uh-oh.
Carmelo did set a screen that
Well,
was
please.
epic.
I mean,
but
everybody sets a screen,
uh-oh,
come on.
which is when
And
you
then
became
John
the villain
Stockton-
in Utah.
and then, look,
for just a minute. Now you're our mascot. You're our hero.
nothing is better. This game tomorrow night, UCLA coming up here, those Utah fans are going to be yelling and screaming. We love that.
Who you got tomorrow?
I think that UCLA is a better team, but I think that Utah wins.
That's what I like to hear.
I think that, but it's not what I think. It's what's going to happen on the court. And that's what this room is about. And that's the people who, to be the Maurice Lucas, to stand up and say, I'll take care of this. I know we have problems, and we're going to make it better. I had the privilege of being the broadcast. There is no further stretch of the imagination that little Billy would be the broadcaster, right? I mean, here I am. I'm lying in the hospital bed on March 15th, 1990, 28 years ago, and I'm having my 30th operation. The first 29 were a piece of cake. They were all about getting back in the game and starting to go again, right? But this 30th one, they were going to take a big electric saw and cut all the ends of the bone off in my foot and ankle, and then push this big, massive bleeding ball of bone together, put it at a right angle, and then come in, put two big plates on either side, and come around with a power drill and bolt it all together, just so I could come to the I care, you care, we all care for UCAIR, right? event here on February 21st, 2018, right? And I'm lying there, and I know for the first time that it's over, and I'll never run again. Because with the fused ankle, there's just no motion. And no matter what, I mean, it's not a matter of will. It's not a matter of hope. It's not a matter of trying harder. At some point, you can't do that physically anymore, so that you have to make that transition. And so I'm lying there, and it's just so sad, and things are just spiraling terribly out of control. And so through the tears and the loss and the desperation, the anxiety, I tell myself, you know what? I think I got a plan. And it was at that moment when this lightning bolt, flash of inspiration seared across the smoking crater that's my mind. And I said, yeah, I got it. I'm 6'11", I've got red hair, freckles, a big nose, a goofy, nerdy looking face. I can't talk, and I'm a deadhead, having been to now more than 889 concerts. And
That was one of my questions.
Right, and it's not enough. Yeah. And so, but I'll be out on tour again this summer when they're in Mexico right now, heading to Florida and then New Orleans. And so I said, well, wow, with all those qualifications, red hair, can't talk, deadhead, television is the only career possibility for me to pursue. And so they looked at me and they said, are you kidding, Walton? Get out of here. That'll never work. The same way that all these innovators here in Utah who were coming up with all these new ideas, all these carbon capture things we're doing, all the innovations that were coming to generate new electricity, all the things that we're doing to make the water cleaner, everything that's going on right now, and other people are saying, no, in due time, that'll never work. That's what they told me, right? Get out of here, don't ever come back. But I chased that dream. I finally got my chance. Made no difference to me, although it did to my wife and children, that my first broadcast was on the radio from Bakersfield on Christmas Day for no pay, and the team and the entire league were folding the next day. But yeah, I was broadcasting, right? And so, not too long after that, I got a real chance, the chance that we've all had in our lives. There's just way too much nonsensical rhetoric going around about how it's about individual bootstrapping and rugged individualism. It's about the team. And every single person here, every person who's ever made it has been helped by other people. And the worst thing I see in life is when somebody does make it, and the first thing they do is they buy their mansion on the hill, and they put a big electrified fence around it and said, I got mine, get out of here, I don't care about you. And that's not the way our world, our country is or should be, because we are the result. And that's why I love Utah. That's why I love the community spirit. That's why I love the Utah Jazz. That's why I love what they're doing right now with Quinn Snyder and Ricky Rubio and Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert and all these different people, because it doesn't matter where you're from, it's who you're from. And that ability of the people in Utah to bring up and nurture their own. And we're going to see that tomorrow night. And so here it was when my spine failed, February 24th, 2008. and I was on that ground, and I could no longer move. And a week before that date, not that I remember, I had just been named one of the top 10 pundits in all of media. I had just been named one of the top 20 sports business representatives around the entire globe, and I had just been named one of the top 50 sportscasters of all time. So if I can do this, if you can do what you're doing sitting here, what's to keep all of you from making sure that we have the clean air, the clean jobs, and the future that we all so desperately want? And so as I was thinking, about John Wooden and all those different things, because he kept saying it's not a game of size and strength. And because what he was really trying to get at is, what's going to happen if your game is just being bigger and stronger than the other guys? What are you going to do when Kareem shows up? What are you going to do when Shaq shows up? What are you going to do when Yao Ming shows up, right? And so that's why when he kept saying it's not a game of size and strength, I called him on it. I said, how can you say that with a straight face? It's not a game of size and strength. Come on. Kareem has all the records. Shaq has all the money. And Wilt has 20,000 girlfriends. You tell me what's up with that. And so Coach Wooden, he immediately would say, you're the slowest learner I've ever had. Don't you realize it's not about stuff? It's not about material accumulation and physical gratification. It's about becoming the champion in everything you do. And that requires you training the mind, but also requires you to subjugate your ego. The ego is a great thing because it does make us better. But at some point, you have to realize that the greater goals of what's happening in Utah, greater goals of what's happening in California, greater goals of what's happening in the United States and in the world have to take precedent over our own individual selfishness. And so that path that we talked about earlier, leader, vision, team, culture, foundation, there's two critical elements that I left out of that. And those are the elements of what makes things work. We know what makes things fail, and that is lack of honor, selfishness, greed that leads to anger, hatred, and ultimately violence, right? The total failure and collapse of humanity. What makes things work is what Utah is known for best. What the Utah Jazz, then, now, and in the future, what the state of Utah, all these incredible places, Flaming Gorge, Dinosaur, Arches, Colorado River, Canyonlands, Needles Overlook, Bridges, Lake Powell, all these phenomenal places, Bryce, Zion, Escalante, Bears Ears, all these fantastic places, and that sense of sacrifice and discipline to make it all happen. And I had the privilege of working with somebody who sacrificed a ton. Kareem, all these guys I mentioned earlier, but I had the chance to be the broadcaster for Michael Jordan. And it was so special because he was the personification of excellence in everything on and off the court, with the exception of his Bobcats or Hornets, whatever they're called. And he promises me he's working on that. I still haven't seen it, right? So Michael, as a player, would just every game deliver and bring it, which is the challenge and standard for all of us, right? And then, but the broadcasters, we had to come up with the new storylines, the new ideas. So one day I walk in and I would always ask the questions to him before the game, and I'd say, so Michael, how does it feel that you single-handedly have proven that Copernicus, Galileo, Isaac Newton, and Albert Einstein didn't know what they were talking about, and physics and gravity do not exist? And he looks at me kind of puzzled, and I wasn't waiting around for his answer, right? Because I was on fire and ready to go. So I just quickly moved on. And I said, Michael.
First time I felt like Michael Jordan.
You are Michael Jordan. You're Spencer, right?
That's right.
Spencer.
That's right.
You're the,
Bill with two L's.
You're the lieutenant governor. Okay.
We have 5 minutes, and I get 2 questions.
Okay. I'm going to go to overtime tonight.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so Michael, he says, I say to Michael, how do you do this? Every single game, Michael, you come out, and Michael, you're just an average-sized guy, little tiny, nondescript human being, right? You're not the biggest, you're not the strongest, you're not the fastest, and you don't jump the highest. But every single game, Michael, you come out here against the ultimate winners of the genetic lottery, Ewing, Olajuwon, Sampson, Robinson, Shaq, Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, an endless line of guys. And every single game, Michael is coming out there and he is taking it right to them. And ultimately, he's coming down that lane and he's throwing it down in their face. And then he stands back and looks at them, says, what are you going to do about that? And there was nothing they could ever do. And so I'm asking Michael, ESPN, the company that I work for, they loop these shows of you doing this every single game. And I want to know how much time you spend on all these spectacular plays that we have the privilege of watching. And he looked at me with incredulity and he said, Bill, I don't spend a second on any of that. I spend every bit of my life on my foundation, on my physical fitness, on my footwork, on my skill level. But what I really spend my life on, Bill, is the dream of who I've got on my team and how we're going to get to where we want to go. And then that leads seamlessly into the changes in our life, right? I'm 65. I have been chasing it down for so long. I left home when I was 15 or 16 and just been on the go ever since. And as you get older, as things change, as it gets harder, the amount of commitment, the amount of understanding everything that you have to do and your concept of everything changes and expands. I used to think I knew what everything and commitment meant until my spine failed, until I couldn't move, until I couldn't lift my arms, until I couldn't lift my head, until I couldn't get off the ground. Everything since that point has changed, and my comprehension of everything is so much different today than it was 10 years ago. And then the next step is, I heard Thom talk about this earlier tonight. He talked about the incremental steps and how you move forward, right? That is your name, right? It's T-H-O-M, right? I mean, so the mantra is, you cannot finish what you don't start. And too often our young people, too often our people who are entrenched in power, they think that we're going to wait until everything is perfect before we take that step into the game. Don't believe that. Success in life is built up advantages over incremental steps of getting in the game and get going. And that's why when John Wooden was sitting there and just telling me all these different things and how much I blew it and how much I just absolutely left so much on the table, and I just wish back and think that, oh man, if I could only do that all over again. But that's not the way the game of life works. And as I'm sure you'll say tonight, if only. Because I will go home tonight and say, oh man, I forgot that, I forgot this. That's always the way it works. So
I'll have a regret or two.
yeah, like agreeing to do this. What do you want to talk about?
Closing statement. I think we're about there. I wanted one quick Danny Ainge story. Because I know you've got a million.
Danny was the coolest dude ever. First of all, I got to say that we had a guy who's also from Utah, Fred Roberts.
You
right?
did, Fred Roberts.
Fred Roberts, the only guy in the
His
history.
nephew is in the House of Representatives.
Fantastic, great. And what I love today is with what's going on, how everybody is coming into the political arena. All these scientists, all these doctors.
Would you ever run for office?
No,
Okay.
I just, no, I.
Are you sure? That's less convincing than Oprah.
Her speech was fantastic.
It was fantastic.
It just brought tears to my eyes. And I saw, just the other day, I was visiting a friend in the hospital, and her husband, I know Oprah and I know her husband, Stedman. And Stedman, they're just both the greatest people. And I was
I'm not sure they're married, but let's keep going with it.
That doesn't matter. This is America. This is freedom.
No, it's great.
Come on, man. And anyway, and I looked at Stedman and I said, and I just had tears in my eyes. I just said, thank you, thank you, thank you. I mean, the spirit. But so Fred Roberts, he has the distinction of being the only player in the history of basketball to have been traded first for an exhibition game, right? The Celtics wanted him from Utah. The Celtics didn't want to give up anybody. Utah was having trouble selling tickets.
We needed the money.
Larry Bird could sell tickets. And so they said, look, we'll give you Fred Roberts if you bring Larry out here and play an exhibition game. So he was traded for an exhibition game. And then later in his career, Fred was traded for an assistant coach somewhere. So, I mean, it's one thing if you're Dave Myers, right, from UCLA and you get traded for Kareem, right? But if you get traded for an exhibition game, oh my gosh. So, no, in my whole life in basketball, I mean, I had the best coaches. I played for 3 of the greatest teams ever. 6 of my coaches are in the Hall of Fame. Many more would be if these wretched legs had carried me to my dreams. But I just couldn't get to where I wanted to go, to where I needed to go. And so, but my coaches are different than the coaches today. My coaches, I mean, John Wooden, we never watched film. He never used the blackboard. We never had a play. He never called timeout. In 4 years, he mentioned the other team twice. We lost both games. Thanks a lot, Coach. But he was worried about us. The way that you and Governor Gary are worried about Utahns, and you're standing up for Utahns, and you're making us all proud, and you're fighting for what's right for Utah.
This is the best Danny Ainge story ever.
Right. So it all rolls into one. So, and all my coaches were like that, right? Now they spend so much time on the other team. Who cares about the other team? Just go out there and kill them. And it was like when you go on the road. I mean, winning at home, you're supposed to win at home, right? But when you go on the road and you can get it done, and those fans hate you, and those fans are just despise you, and they think that they're going to yell and break your psyche and break your concentration and get in here and make you crumble in their presence. That's what fires us up. Learn to love the pressure. Learn to love that excitement, that uncertainty where you walk out there and you don't know, but you know if you play great, you're going to win. And my goal was always, hey man, those people coming into this game tonight, they hate me. And I love that. At the end of the game, my job is to make them be our fans, right? And so that's what happened. And so we're at practice with the Celtics, right? And we got everybody on the teams in the Hall of Fame, and Red Auerbach and Danny Ainge, and I mean, phenomenal players top to bottom, just one of the really special teams ever. And Casey Jones, who was the most like John Wooden of any coach I ever played for on and off the court. And so the end of every morning practice before the evening's game, Casey Jones would call us all together and give us the last bit of instructions. You know, the game starts at 7:30, be here by 6:15, and just be ready. And he would always then say, does anybody have anything to say? Does anybody know anything about the other team? And nobody ever said a word, with the exception of Danny, who always had something to say about the other team. And none of us ever cared because we were just better than everybody else, and it didn't matter what they did. It was what we did, right? And so, but Danny, who was watching tons of college basketball at the time, because when you're in the NBA, you don't have the time to watch college. And the NBA is such a higher level than college. Anyway, so Danny, this one day, Utah at the Boston Garden. And Danny, when Coach Casey says, anybody have anything to say? And Danny goes, yeah, Coach, I got something to say. And everybody turned to Danny. He said, come on, Danny, we got to get out of here. Let's go. Danny said, no, man, Utah, they got this new player. He's really, really good. Man, his name is Karl Malone, and he's got big hands and big, broad shoulders, and he's really good. He is so good that they call him the mailman because he delivers, right? Larry goes, mailman, are you kidding me? If he's the mailman, I'm Federal Express, because where I'm from, the post office closes at 5 o'clock. I deliver 24/7. Let's get going. Larry just walked off the court, went in the locker room, took a shower, went home, took a nap, came back, and went for 50 in Carl's face. Carl had no idea what hit him, right? Because Larry was one of those guys. Larry never got tired of throwing 50 in your face. You know, some guys get bored. Kareem, Kevin would get bored. Yeah. But Kareem and Michael and Larry.
But when Larry got bored, he played left-handed.
Right, he did that. He said he did that, and he said he was saving his right hand for the Lakers. Yeah.
Okay, I think our time is up like 20 minutes ago.
No, man, no way. Somebody rotate that clock back, please. Can I have a closing statement?
Closing statement. Closing statement.
Okay.
I'd like that in the form of a question. Bill, do you have a closing statement for us?
Yes, I'd like to. Thank you for the overtime.
Let the record
I
show
love
that I got a
overtime.
question in tonight.
Yeah. How about a round of applause for Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox and his fantastic wife, Abby. Please, more children. And so, we are at a critical time. And we are always in the fight, and the fight is what makes it fun. The fight is what drives us. And my favorite player ever is Bill Russell, and for a lot of different reasons. And one of the reasons was he won all the time, but was really the way he played, which was to make the other people better. And that's what the world of public service is about. That's what my life is. I try to be. That was John Wooden, it was Chick Hearn, all these people in my life that I just love. And so Bill Russell's time in Boston was not a good time for him. I mean, he was there 13 years and won the championship 11 times. And when he retired, he didn't even tell him. He just left. Because Bill, when he got there, Boston was having trouble with race relations. As race relations are a problem still everywhere in all of our lives, and we have to look out and embrace and welcome and make everybody feel like we're involved, we're invested in this. But when Bill got to Boston, they wouldn't let him live where he wanted to live because of the color of his skin. And then when he did finally get a house, he was on the road winning the championship for the Celtics, and while he was on the road, and everybody knew he was on the road, some skinheads, they broke into his house and they spray painted the N-word all over this house, all over the walls, and then one of them defecated on his bed and left it there while Bill was winning the championship. And Bill came back and saw all this, and just he internalized so much, took it all, and then when it was time to go, he just left, and he didn't show up for his Hall of Fame induction. He didn't show up for his number retirement. He didn't say thank you or goodbye. He just left. And David and Red Auerbach, when David took over in February 1st, 1984, the first call he made was to Bill Russell and said, Bill, we want to bring you back in. You are the NBA. You are our foundation. Now, please, let's work to make this better. And Boston has gotten a lot better, but it's not how far we've come. It's how far we still have to go. And that was Bill Russell's constant effort to make things better. That's what you guys do on a constant basis. And I salute and applaud you and I acknowledge you for doing that. And so Bill gets, things work out and Bill comes back in. And then it was not too long ago that Obama, when he was the president, Obama is in Boston being the president, right? Where you just go around and you give all these speeches and you pull it, all the leadership elements we talked about. And Obama was fantastic, and I encourage every one of you to read David Axelrod's book, Believer. I mean, incredible. It will just give you so much confidence that we are going to make it, because our spirits are too often broken as opposed to uplifted and brought together and healed. And so Obama is there in Boston being the president, and he's talking all day. He's got the teleprompter, he's giving all the speeches, and he's rallying everybody together. We can do this, let's make it happen. And then at the very end of the day, this huge crowd downtown Boston. And he goes off script, and he stops, and he says, I want to challenge the city of Boston here, because you've got a hero from the past who you have not treated right. Obama knows the story of Bill Russell's time in Boston. And he says, we've got to fix this, because here you have this great hero, this great force of nature who did so much to pull so many people together and was responsible for so many firsts in the world, and there's no statue, there's no acknowledgement, there's no thank you to Bill Russell. So I'm challenging you in the audience in Boston here the same way that I'm challenging Utah right now to do more for clean air and clean water and solar energy and renewables and all this stuff and move forward all the time. And Obama says, I'm challenging you folks in Boston right now to do what's right for Bill Russell. And then that was the end of the day. And standing in the crowd that day were the two Celtic owners, Dave Paliuka and Wick Grossbeck, two guys who bought Bain Capital from Mitt Romney, the next senator here from Utah, right? And so they're standing there out there, and they hear this emotional plea from Obama, and they own the Celtics. So they kind of elbowed each other, looked at each other, and said, we'll take care of this. And so they built a statue for Bill, and they had this incredible ceremony. And the statue of Bill is not in front of the basketball arena. It's down in City Hall Plaza, right next to all the Revolutionary War heroes, the guys that stood up and risked everything, which was Bill Russell. And there's all these blocks, like John Wooden's Pyramid of Success around him. And Bill, he is there, and he's grumpy as can be, right? And nobody can be grumpy like Bill Russell. And so they have this big event, and everybody is there. And the only people who couldn't make it were dead, and the ones who weren't there, they sent videos, even from the grave, right? And so it was just this phenomenal ceremony. It lasted all day long, right? And so Bill's up there speaking, and it's finally his turn to speak. And he speaks for 2 hours without stopping, without notes, and just telling all the stories of the struggle and the fight and everything. And like everybody has to go to the bathroom and everybody has to leave, right? And Bill's daughter, Karen, she has to be the one that gets up and walks up to him at the podium. And Bill's deaf as can be, can't hear a thing. And so she's whispering in his ear while he's speaking, right? And you know, Daddy, the governor has another appointment. Daddy, everybody has to go to the bathroom. You got to wrap this up. And he's saying, what? And so finally he understands he's got to wrap it up, as I will here. Wait.
Like, if you did run for office, you would be the designated filibuster.
And so Bill gets very serious. And he starts talking about change. And he starts talking about progress. And he starts talking about the effort to make things better, which is all of our duty and responsibility and obligation. And Bill, at that point, tells his family's history. He says, if you don't believe in change, if you don't believe in progress, if you're not willing to accept the struggles and the battles that everybody's out there fighting, you really have no comprehension of what it is that we're trying to do and where we're trying to go. Because now I'm Bill Russell speaking at the podium in Boston. And he says, my grandfather was a slave in Louisiana. He picked cotton his whole life. Never went to a single day of school, ever in his life. My father, Bill Russell's dad, he went to school until the 6th grade, and then they just stopped, and no black person in Louisiana could go to school past the 6th grade. It was out to the cotton fields. And so when Bill Russell's dad, who went to school till 6th grade and then worked in the cotton fields and became a manual laborer, as he was growing up and Bill was a young boy, Bill Russell's dad went and got every dime. He saved every penny, nickel, and dime that he could. And he went one day into the local lumber yard with this handkerchief full of coins. And he walked up to the owner who was behind the counter. And he put the money on the table, and he said, I want to buy as much lumber as I can with what I have here. This is all the money I have. And the owner of the lumber store, he said, well, what do you want with that? You're just a black man. He used the N-word on him. He said, what do you want to buy lumber for? You're a worker. He said, I have to build a school in our neighborhood because until our children get an education, until they can learn how to dream and learn how to hope and learn how to build a life, we're never going anywhere. We're never going to move forward. We have no chance at the hope and the opportunity and the purpose in life that defines all of us. And so the guy looked at him and said, get out of here. That will only buy you 1 2x4, and even if you had more, I'm not going to sell it to you. Because we're not going to educate the black people here in Louisiana, because then all of what we have will be gone, and we won't have what we want and what we've worked so hard for. So Mr. Russell, Bill's dad, looked at the store owner, and he said, as he pushed the money right at the guy, and said, go ahead and keep the money. He turned around and walked out. The owner hustled back, caught him at the door, said, what do you mean keep the money? You're going to need this money to feed your family. He says, no, I'm not. And the owner of the store said, well, why not? You're not going to sell me any wood that I can buy to build a school for our children? I'm going to just go home and get my gun and come back and kill you on the spot. The guy stepped back, looked at him, thought for a second, said, come here. Took his name, took his address, the owner of that school. He went and he built the school himself. Now, if you read Isabella Wilkerson's Pulitzer Prize winning book, The Warmth of Other Suns, the first black female to ever win a Pulitzer Prize, her book of The Warmth of Other Suns, of 8 to 10 million black Americans leaving the deep South, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Tennessee, coming to California, to Chicago, to Detroit, to Cleveland, to Philly, to Boston, to Washington, D.C., to New York, every day, tens of thousands of them on the train, because in the late 40s, they just accepted that this is not going to work here and we've got to move on. Bill Russell's family was part of that. Great migration. They made it to California. Bill Russell living in the housing projects. His mom died early. Living in the housing projects, was cut from his high school basketball team, was told he was no good, don't ever come back here. Somebody else came and put his arm on his shoulder and said, you come with me. I'll help you. I believe in you. Bill Russell, in high school basketball, scored in double figures one time in his life. That day, there was somebody in that audience that watched him and said, I want him to come play for our team. Bill Russell got one college basketball scholarship offer. That was to USF. Bill Russell went from that and changed the world of sports as much as anybody ever, with the possible exception of Muhammad Ali, who was my other childhood hero. Bill Russell then said, my dad was a slave. My grandfather was a slave. My dad was able to build a school for the children. I got to go to college. And now my daughter Karen, who was just up here yelling in my ear how I have to wrap this up, she's a graduate of Harvard Law School, and she works in our White House for President Barack Obama. And then he walked off the stage. And for those of you who don't believe, for those of you who aren't willing to put your hand open and out the way someone has done for you, please, look yourself in the mirror. Are we doing everything? Are we willing to sacrifice? Are we willing to discipline ourselves so that others won't have to, so that our children can have their day? How can we run when we know? Thank you for my life, which is a life of pride, of loyalty, of gratitude. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your vision. Thank you for your willingness to lead us to the promised land. This is the place. But mostly, thank you for my life, because I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I'll be here all night long. Thanks very much, folks. Here we go.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this guy, Bill, I only have one thing to say, and I want to quote the great Hot Rod Hundley. They asked him once what his best game ever was playing, and he said it was the night that Will Chamberlain and I combined for 50 points. Hot Rod scored 2, and Will scored 48. That's how I feel tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Bill Walton.
I got to comment on that, right? Because was it Tom that introduced you?
It was.
So Tom, he said that you were too small to play basketball. Don't ever think that. If you ever think that you're too small to make a difference, you have never spent the night alone in bed with a mosquito. It's not how big you are, it's how big you play. And you, Lieutenant Governor, and you, Governor Gary, you guys are towering giants.
I did
and
lead
in
my
a
church
world
ball
of
team in
shriveling,
scoring.
cowering midgets, I applaud you, I salute you, and I thank you with
Ladies
a
and
life of
gentlemen, Bill
gratitude.
Walton.
I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Thanks very much. If you have any questions, you want a picture or an autograph, I'll be here all night.
Folks, before you go, Bill, Governor, can we get you up here? We actually have a gift for you. So we know how much, have a seat, folks. We know how much, Bill, you like tie-dyed shirts. And so
I love tie-dye, and I love when the Grateful Dead come to Utah.
So we had a special Show You Care
Wow.
tie-dyed shirt made for you.
I
had
care.
one
You
for-
care. We all care for Utah. For you care.
So we had one made for the governor
Oh, man.
and for Lieutenant Governor. I don't know, folks, should we put these on and take a picture?
This is like big enough for Shaq here. You don't have to put yours on, Governor. It's all right. But if you want to go to the next Grateful Dead show here in town, you come be my guest. You know where caring comes into all of this? And I'm so inspired by everything here in the name. I'm a huge believer in the use of the English language to get that message across. And John Wooden was an English teacher by profession who had young men under his athletic supervision in the afternoon. And when he made that pyramid of success with 15 words, it took him 14 years to put those 15 words in place and in order. And where did he put loyalty? He put loyalty right in the middle, in the bottom block, the foundation. Loyalty, the human attribute and personal characteristic that allows us to achieve extraordinary things because we care. I care. You care. We all care. For you care. Here we go.
Spencer. Quick shot.
Come on, Spencer. Don't hide. Don't be afraid. Now one like this, all with our arms up here. There we go.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks for your patience.
On your tables, we've got little suggestion cards provided to us by doTERRA. So when you're thinking about what you need to do, you've got those cards. Can I get all the board members to please come forward as well for some photos? Thank you, guys. Have a great night. We'll see you next year.